This is the Antonov 225, the largest aircraft in the world, or it used to be, because it no longer exists. This wonder of Soviet engineering was destroyed in the early days of the Ukraine-Russian war. This used to be the largest aircraft in the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics and Ukraine as well. Why are we here? Well, we are here because of two things. One, to remember this massive aircraft, and to acknowledge that it is a victim of Russian imperialism and its needless war in Ukraine. We are starting out from Donetsk International Airport, and this movie is ironic because everything we see here no longer exists. The Antonov 225 no longer exists, or at least it doesn't exist as an intact aircraft anymore. The airport you are looking at no longer exists as an intact airport anyway. And the cities Donetsk and Luhansk are no longer under Ukrainian control since 2014. So things have changed from the idealistic picture which is here shown in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Well, we are preparing for takeoff from Donetsk International Airport, and then we will talk about the invasion of Ukraine and the consequences for this aircraft and the city. We are now accelerating down the runway with 6 massive engines. Just look at this massive thing. Have you seen the many wheels? And then we are going to talk about what Donetsk is and why it is important. Well, everything that happened in Ukraine has an origin. The origins lie in the collapse of the Soviet Union and the independence of both Russia and Ukraine. Both countries have always been, well, according to some brothers and according to others, enemies. Ukraine was part of the old Russian Empire, but at the end of the First World War, Ukrainian nationalists attempted to create an independent Ukraine. This Ukrainian People's Republic joined forces with Western imperialism in an foolish attempt to become independent. The Ukrainian People's Republic was eventually defeated, and it was replaced by the Ukrainian Socialist Soviet Republic, which joined the Union of Socialist Soviet Republics together with Soviet Russia in December 1922. In 1991, the Ukrainian Socialist Soviet Republic declared independence under the name Ukraine and has been an independent country ever since. Politics in this country have always been divided between either a pro-Western government or a pro-Russian government. Well, neither governments have been able to provide a clear alternative to the terrible injustice that swept over this country after the collapse of the Soviet Union, when millions ended up in massive poverty due to deregulation, privatization of the economy. Oligarchs who took power enriched themselves while millions ended up in poverty. And this also fueled nostalgia towards the Soviet Union. Here in the east of Ukraine, in Donetsk, Soviet nostalgia was always very strong. And this resulted in the fact that when the popular or pro-Russian president Viktor Yanukovych was kicked out of his office in December 2013, many ethnic Russians rebelled. With, of course, a little help from Russia, they formed the Donetsk People's Republic and declared independence. This city here was, together with Luhansk, one of the two major cities that was more or less taken over by Russia, because these separatists, however they call themselves, they were not truly independence fighters. Yes, they called themselves independent, but they could never be independent because Moscow was providing for everything. Plus, the loyalty of the separatist leaders lay with Russia. And when Russia invaded Ukraine on the 24th of February 2022, the Donetsk People's Republic allowed itself to be annexed, which of course happened in 2022, in late 2022. So this city became how can we say it, a bastion of great Russian chauvinism. Ukrainian used to be an equal language to Russian here, and the separatists at first claimed that they were fighting for both Russian-speaking people and Ukrainian-speaking people, that they only opposed the Ukrainian government, but in the end it turned out they opposed everything Ukraine. They slowly banned all Ukrainian cultural things, and in the end the Ukrainian language itself was also more or less removed from schools, from the public life. And so Donetsk became a pure Russian city, which it never has been. Despite a great Russian majority here, there has been Ukrainian-speaking people, and they have lost all their rights under Russia today, because this part of Ukraine is annexed by the Russian Empire of Vladimir Putin. It is an idyllic picture when we see this massive aircraft flying freely over the skies of Donetsk, because this is no longer possible since 2014. The last big aircraft who flew over these parts was shot down, and we speak here over Malaysia Airlines flight MH17, which was shot down by separatists in July of 2014, killing over 200 innocent passengers, mainly from the Netherlands. And since then there has been no civil aviation over the Donetsk region, which is part of Donbas. Donbas is a historical region in eastern Ukraine, which includes the Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts. Oblast is a Soviet name for provinces. And when we now look at the sunset, the sun is slowly going down here over Donetsk city. We can only, hope that one day peace returns, but unfortunately peace will not come as long as Russian imperialism holds control over this city and its population. Does that mean we fully support the Ukrainian government? Well, absolutely not. The Ukrainian government is no alternative. It is led by the same corrupt oligarchs which also rule Russia. Of course, Russia claims that Ukraine is led by fascists, which is complete nonsense, because the president of Ukraine is a Jew by ethnicity, and he is not even a Ukrainian speaker. He used to be pure Russian. He couldn't even speak proper Ukrainian when he took office. Well, he had to change that very fast. President Zelensky is, by all accounts, a right-wing nationalist, even authoritarian, but he is no fascist. And his government, how corrupt, inflexible, and how nationalist it may be, it is not fascist. Yes, they are fascist elements. Fascists are fighting on the side of the Ukrainian government in the Azov battalion, but let us not forget that Russian fascists are also fighting on the side of the Russian armed forces and the Russian separatists in Donetsk and Luhansk. So, fascists fight on both sides here. And here you see the Donetsk airport, fully renovated in 2012 with a new terminal, which was then completely destroyed in 2014 when the civil war broke out between the Ukrainian government and the Russian-speaking separatists. Today, all that remains of the Donetsk International Airport is the concrete ruins of a airport that used to be a beautiful entry point to the Donetsk city. Let us hope that one day it can be again. We are now approaching the Luhansk, the second city that came under separatist control in 2014. Russian separatists proclaimed the Luhansk People's Republic in opposition to the Ukrainian government. The battles between the separatists and the Ukrainian government has not resulted in a victory for either. That was because Russia supplied the separatists with not only weaponry, but also soldiers, tanks, heavy artillery, and other weapons to be used. Of course, Russia claimed that they were not fighting, that they were not even involved. One of the many lies of Vladimir Putin. He has been involved in the civil war in Ukraine right up from the very first moment. Had Russia indeed not provided any material and manpower, the separatists would have been overwhelmed by the Ukrainian army. Luhansk is a little smaller than Donetsk. However, the Luhansk People's Republic has been able to claim all parts of the former Ukrainian Luhansk Oblast for itself now, because when the invasion started on the 24th of February 2022, the separatists from the Luhansk People's Republic were able, together with Russian soldiers, to control the entire Luhansk Oblast, forcing the Ukrainian troops out, while Donetsk is not fully under the control of either the separatists or the Russian government. Ukraine has been able to hold on to some parts of Donetsk, while all of Luhansk is now unfortunately under the control of the Russian Empire. Here it is, the outskirts of Luhansk. A big industrial city like Donetsk. During the Soviet era, a lot of heavy industry was located here, as was in all of eastern Ukraine. And now these lands are under the control of the Tsar in Moscow again. There are leftists, of course, who fall for the propaganda that Russia is fighting fascism, And there are leftists who think that we should all call for peace, that Russia and Ukraine should just start talking. Understandable and perhaps a good initiative, but Ukraine is under attack here, and it has the right to fight back. Russia is the aggressor here and should stop. Not only occupying, not only fighting, but it should also withdraw from all territories they have illegally seized since 2014. That includes Crimea, that includes Donetsk, and that includes Luhansk. The Russian Empire, officially the Russian Federation, has accepted the borders in 1991, and what Putin has done is simply imperialism at its best. Now, the Antonov 225 was destroyed in the early days of the conflict, when Russian paratroopers attempted to take control of the Antonov airport near Kiev. Ukrainian troops eventually retook the airport, but the massive aircraft was destroyed. The entire front section no longer exists. It was burned away. The rear and the tail are still intact, but the wings are heavily damaged. The nose section is completely gone, so it has to be rebuilt from scratch, more or less. Luckily, there is an intact second hull, which was never finished due to the cancellation of the Soviet space shuttle program. But they have a second hull in storage, which they could use to rebuild the Antonov 225. And the fact that it flies here on Microsoft Flight Simulator has to do with the fact that you can buy this aircraft for Flight Simulator for only 20 euros or $20. And the money that Microsoft makes by selling this digital aircraft will go directly to the Antonov company with the hope of rebuilding the Antonov 225. Because it is a marvel piece of Soviet engineering. This aircraft used to be part of one country that was built in opposition to capitalism, imperialism. And it is very sad to see that one country has decided to attack another country, and that has led to the destruction of this giant of the sky.